Welcome to Recovery Live. I am Alicia. Tom is having a little bit of difficulty, but he's going to be in a little bit. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching. We have many retreats coming up. I am in Northern California, so I'm getting ready and preparing for the Nevada City retreat. We have some in the UK. We have one in Florida and New Jersey. So check the website to see what retreat might be near you. And we have one in Malibu coming up in December. There's many retreats going on. And we today have a topic of we are going to talk about all things retreat, why we do it in 3 days, why it's effective in 3 days, any concerns or things that we might hear from outside people. If you're watching and have a question, we want you to comment on anything that you think it can't be possible, or can it be possible? How do I get there? Why do you do it in 3 days? That's what we're going to discuss, hopefully with Tom if he comes back in. And Dale Barker is going to join from Florida. So let's, Kath, if you're backstage, I know you are, if you want to bring in Dale Barker. And then if Tom is in there, we can bring Tom in as well. There's Dale. I'm not sure about Tom yet, but we could do it. We could do it by ourselves, right?
We got this.
Yes. So with retreat in 3 days, what comes to mind, or what do you hear? Do you hear from outside people of like, that can't be done? There's no way. I'm sure you do.
Well, certainly.
How is that possible? Just because they haven't experienced it.
Well, most people aren't really aware of the history of AA and how it started, and how men were taken through the steps in an afternoon. They were detoxed in a hospital, and then they were told stories by different people as they came into the hospital room to talk to them. And then when sanity had returned, when their fog had cleared from the alcohol, they were set with the proposal of going through the steps, and it went quickly. We found that doing the retreats over a weekend gives people an opportunity to ask questions, get answers, get an understanding of what's going on to them, and then they're able to communicate that to others better when they help others go through the steps.
Yeah. I always find it funny when I've stolen it from Tom, and maybe he got it from you, or it's just a thing. Like when they say, well, the founders did it in one afternoon. We're actually taking too long for a full week. And we're taking longer than they did. I always
Yeah.
thought that was funny.
Well, when I went through the steps the first time in 1994, I went through them in 4 hours, and it was grueling. And I was taking notes, like, because I was going to get an A on the test, and I didn't think I had enough time to really get an understanding. I mean, it really, going through the steps isn't so much about getting an understanding as it's just being willing to get to the amends part, where you can make a list and then go home and make your amends, and start living 10, 11, and 12 in a way that is producing a better life than what you had before you went through the steps.
So would you say that at the first time in the 4 hours that you were recovered after that? Were you able to say that then?
Oh yeah, I had not drank in, I don't know, 2.5 years.
Before that?
Yeah. So, but
Okay.
I was stark raving sober. I mean, I still couldn't function very well emotionally. I was just a mess, and going through the steps gave me a way to live, a way to express myself and find out who I am. And once I realized that's what they did, the guys that wrote the book, those first 40 guys, the we in the big book, That's what we did. So I did what they did, and that meant I was recovered like they were. Not perfect. I'm
Yeah.
still not perfect. I'm still working at it. I'm still using 10, 11, and 12 every day because, I don't get to be perfect. That perfectionism was another one of my defects, and it's something I have to deal with every day.
Yeah. I think that's what got in my way and maybe in other people's way of thinking, well, you can't do it in a weekend or 4 hours because we feel like you have to be done, that finish line done. And we're never done. Even after that, we stay in 10, 11, and 12. And you might have made a decision in 3, but now you're continuously doing it. And I think there's a disconnect there, maybe. I know there was with me because I
Right.
thought, I can't, I'm not done. I can't be done. I'm not, and I was kind of fighting it. So I was fighting for the wrong thing. And so that I think that's part of maybe people why they think, no, it can't be done. And also it's ignorance in a good way, not a bad way. Like they don't know. People in the
Right.
rooms that I meet, they don't know this even exists. And
Yeah.
even if they read the book and they see that part that they did in an afternoon, they're not doing that. I haven't seen it done in secular or whatever you call the regular AA meetings. I have seen out here in Auburn, where I am, California, where they go through the steps in 4 weeks, 1 week at a time or something like that, which is closest to what we do, which I love. But I hadn't heard of that before. I forget what they call it, but yeah. What makes going through the 12 steps in a weekend easier than over a long period of time?
Well, for me, if you're spending a lot of time getting to the place where you can start living one day at a time because you have the spiritual kit of tools to live that way, a lot of people relapse. And today, I mean, back if you relapse and got drunk, you didn't necessarily die. But today, there's stuff out there that just kills you if you go back to some substance, um, that you die. And I'm just not okay with that. So for me to take that much time to go through it, you're just suffering. And a relapse is a real uh, issue with that. So doing it quickly um, removes that. It doesn't mean you won't relapse, but if you start living that way, you won't. The problem is removed. You don't even really have to deal with it that much. You just do your 10th step, you do your 11th step, you do your 12th step. You know, when and you live that way. Um,
Yeah, and it's becomes routine, right? And it comes a little. Sometimes it's boring. My 10th step is so boring now. It's like
right,
it's boring. But then the next day it's not, and then it's
right,
boring, and it's not, and you just stay in it. And I have experience with, well, this I don't need it anymore. I'm good. And then bam, something, and then I go right back to it.
right.
So that's something to learn from other people too, is just stay with it. And then many of us will stop doing our 10th step or say I'm good. And then we find out that we're not. And then just get
No,
back to it. You don't have to beat yourself up, share about it, get back on. And
no,
it's not failure if you get back up. I've been saying that like so much lately. Just get up, try something new, pivot,
right.
change, talk to somebody.
Not everybody needs the 12 steps to live. Some people can just stop, and they're different than me. I can't live that way. I have to live by the 12 steps. But some people can do that, and they just do better in fellowship and medication and different programs. Um, but if you're like me, I was helpless and hopeless, um, trying to do the way I was doing it.
Here's
Hey, Zach.
Tom. Here he is. He made it.
Hey guys, sorry, technical difficulties. Once in a while, it happens.
It's all good.
We're all done, I think.
Yeah. Cool. Where are you guys at? What you talking about?
We are talking about why 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And the question, what was the question Cass put up there? Cass, if you have that, can you put it back on there? Because that's where our conversation was going. Of, I forget what it was now. Being effective, and then why is 3 days easier than going through a longer process? Which sounds like common sense, right? But I guess someone would say, but I need longer. I need a longer time to get through my step 4. I need a month to do this step and this step. And I guess, it could be effective if you do it that way. It wasn't effective for me. And I saw so many people just drop out. I was in a program that took 12 to 16 months to get through the steps, and almost 65% of them, 70% dropped out right before step 4. And I think on a weekend, you have accountability. You're doing step 4. Everybody else is doing it. You're kind of there. We show how it doesn't have to be scary and drawn out. And we're getting to the root. We don't need books to be written. And then bam, bam, bam. Then we're already on step 4, 5, 6, 7. And you're done. So I know that helped me. What would you say, Tom, if someone just came out and said, how was that even possible to go through the steps in a weekend?
Well, I would say, where did you get that it takes longer than a weekend?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I mean, if you read the big book, while there's absolutely no indications or no instructions about taking a step a month or thinking about it or taking it, there's no indications anywhere in the steps. There are several to many indications that it's to be done right away. So, and that's what they did. So I question to them is, why aren't you doing it in a weekend or in a short period of time? We know that it could be over there's a window of time to it. It's about, Alicia, it's about the perpetuation of it's really just ignorance in most cases, is that people have only know what they've been told. And they've been told that they need to take, and they know alcoholics and addicts love drama. So if we can make this more dramatic and take a lot longer, seems to be.
But I don't think they're doing that intentional. I think you're right. They don't know. And we hear that at retreats all the time. How come nobody told me this?
Right.
You can't know.
Yeah, you can't read those 12 steps in that big book. And if you didn't know anything else, you would just do them. It wouldn't take very long just to do them yourself. And then you'd get on the practice of doing 10, 11, and 12, which is the process. So if you say, well, I can't get over it. Well, 10, 11, and 12 is the process they give us to grow out of our habits and grow into our relationship with God over time. So they aren't saying that every single thing is gone out of your life and you're completely this person without any issues at all on Monday morning. But what we're telling you is you have 3-step tool now to overcome each one of those issues starting Monday morning. And that's the positive message we give. We're going to give you a process that will set your life in motion starting Monday morning. It can absolutely happen over a weekend.
Yeah, there's a statement in the big book that it totally clarifies everything for me. And that's when the spiritual malady is overcome, then we straighten out mentally and physically. So the steps are taking care of that spiritual malady, the first 9 steps. And then 10, you learn to live that way. But then you straighten out mentally and physically. And it is remarkable to me that people I don't think is going to make it. Just because they go through the weekend. I don't. And in social media, I get to watch people grow up on social media now, recovered. sane, having families, buying houses, running businesses, successful. It's just remarkable to me that such a simple program can do so much good when it's done right.
And it's the way they did it when it was the most successful.
Right.
So, Alicia, you're a prime example of doing it over a long period of time, and it was really not. But you were resistant at the beginning. How many questions did Alicia have at the
Oh,
beginning?
I still have questions. I always have questions. And I think that goes back to what I was saying to Dale of like, my thinking is questions, analyzing, very black and white. So I'm trying to practice being in the gray. So I would be one of those for sure that said, you can't do it in a weekend because, okay, I made the decision in step 3 or whatever. But did I? I don't think I did. I didn't. And that's how I live. And I think so many people are like that. Like, I don't know if I did. And okay, I did, but then an hour later, my defect came back out. So I'm not done. And so I think I can't be the only one, can I? That thinks like that. Maybe I am. But I questioned, and I had never heard of it because I had gone through the 16-month thing 3 times, and I was still white knuckling myself. And I never read the big book. You know, I was that girl. I was that one. White knuckled it in 94. I got sober, but I was a white knuckle dry drunk. Had 2 more
Oh.
addictions. Didn't think that I had to get rid of those because I got rid of that one. Why would I get rid of these? That's crazy town. So then when I heard you could do it in a weekend, like, really? And then too, sadly, this is going to show how ignorant I was. I didn't even, you know, when you're in a room with, for me in this room, but it might be something else. You hear something. I heard the steps over. Step 1, da 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 da. When they read how it works, blah 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 blah. But if you ask me what's step 4, I have no idea. I don't know. But I would hear it, so I'm like, yeah, I know them. I didn't know them at all. So the weekend helped me. Like, okay, that's step 1. Okay, stay focused. Step 2. Oh, that's how related to that. I mean, it worked. My brain was like on fire because it was condensed, not like a month later. I don't even know what step 2 was. And so that helped me too, just condense it. Then you're in small groups and you're talking about it and you're not going home and then not meeting for 2 months, or which might work for some people, but it did not work for me at all. And then I just wanted more about it. I wanted to be with you guys. I wanted to do this. I wanted to learn how to do it. And now I have more questions than I had in the beginning.
I mean, this is a common question. Do you see that question, guys? For people who become overwhelmed, well, the information. Well, I mean, I've heard a lot of people say it's so much information in a weekend. And I see it 2 ways. It can be so much information, and it's also not a lot of information. It's so hard for anybody to make it simple, right? Because it must be complicated. And Dale and I have seen this for decades, that they just resist the idea that it can be easy and simple, and that it's straightforward. And so they want to make it complicated. They read more into it. They expect more. They feel like they have to absorb more and more and more. And I mean, we certainly have some people where we'd say, go back and read the big book, right, Dale? We tell them, go back and read it again and then read it again. Alicia, read the big book. And then Alicia, read the big book again. And, you know, Alicia, maybe you could read the big book again. And I wanted to grab the principles. I wanted to actually grab the program. It's a living program for you. It's not an academic endeavor. So if you're looking at it as an academic endeavor and you need to read all the paragraphs and understand everything, that would take more time. That would take more time. Same as if you were to read the Bible as an academic endeavor. But when you read it as a program, as a living document, as a living instructional manual like we have, you begin to live it. And I find that people have less questions. So when we can be better at the retreats in telling people that and trying to talk them off these ledges of information that they don't need.
Right. I mean, if you look at step 2, it talks about being restored to sanity.
Mm-hmm.
So before you go through the steps, you're not exactly sane. You're not. Maybe your thinking is not as solid as it could be. I kind of liken it to when I started a new job over at NASA. I didn't know what to do offhand. I had to learn the parts of the jobs that I was doing and how to do them effectively. And it's the same thing with getting sober and using the steps, the design for living we have. I had to learn how to use those tools. But that doesn't take away from the fact that I needed the tools. It was very important. And like the statement in the big book that says in like 10, 11, and 12, we alcoholics are undisciplined. And God disciplines us in a simple manner. And it's how I got disciplined in my thinking, in my emotions, in my beliefs. I got some discipline about things because I was all over the place when I first got sober. But then I started to learn, well, this works and this doesn't work. So I started taking things away. I quit doing things because that's just not effective. And getting sober is great for me, but it's really about who am I going to help? The big book talks about that. We're to be a maximum service to God and those around us. So my wife and my daughter and my mom and my family and newcomers at the meetings, and I was getting better so that I could help people. So it kind of takes all of I have a good motive now for wanting to learn and grow and not just getting rich like I thought. At first I thought I was just going to get rich. It was irrational. But I learned that, so this is what I can do. I can talk to somebody and totally turn their life around just because I'm sharing the program with them. It's really something else. But you have to go through it to be able to do it. Mm-hmm. So we just do it over a weekend because it's an enjoyable way. People retain it better. Different groups of people. I mean, we've done this online. We've done this all over the world now. It just works better because people have different belief systems in other countries than we have, and have different motives than we have, and it's amazing to watch them change over a weekend.
It's and Alicia, you made a good point that the steps relate to each other and they kind of build on each other, and you want the momentum to keep going. Step 1 leads to step 2 right away, leads to step 3. They work better done quicker because they run into the other, and they build on each other, and they build on each other the previous principle that you were establishing in your life, and you want that to grow right away. So it only makes sense actually to do them quickly and not to have that disconnect and that time to think. And like Dale said, we're undisciplined. We have some level of insanity. I want to get the spiritual awakening that allows the saneness to begin to be developed. If I don't have all the tools, I can't do the job. So if you tell me, build the house, and building this house is going to take a few years to get it all built again and put together, and you say, I'm going to give you got to get started building it though, but I'm only going to give you a nail on Monday, and then a month from now, I'm going to give you a hammer, and then a month from now, I'm going to give you a screwdriver. You can't start building the house until you have all the tools. Doesn't make sense, right? Let's get all the tools in one toolbox in front of us, and then let's start building. And that may take some time, and you might make mistakes, and it might make, that's a pretty good analogy. I got to remember that, Dale.
Yeah.
But
that's good.
if you don't have all the tools. So that's the point of this, is giving people these tools for living. You said it. We're not telling you it's a one and done. We're not telling you you walk away. Some people walk away, though, significantly freer after the weekend, for sure. And in the fact that you realize you don't have to be obsessed with this and that life can be great, that is a huge release that you can feel on Monday morning, which people do. And then if you follow the tools, all the other stuff falls in line. Like Dale said, your emotions and your physical, all of that comes back. It does. It's what happened to them. It's a wonderful. And I'll tell you guys, we'll go back. The amount of questions Alicea had was like the same amount of the whole retreat of time or the questions.
Oh, I have questions. I want to know.
And I just kept answering them. And finally, the questions started to ease off. Then when I met her husband, he was lucky. He was grateful that I was getting asked some of the questions instead of him.
That means you were getting them. Yeah.
Funny.
That happened this morning because we read every morning and then I have all the questions. Where did you come up with this? Like,
Right.
I have questions. I don't understand. And he doesn't have the answers because they're about biblical things where there is no answer. But I'm like, how can that be true?
Right. So let's talk a little bit about, for people that are listening, the logistics around the retreat. And I want to talk a little bit too around your retreat experience and the cost, because there's a charge many times for some of the retreats we get, and we get hit for this, Dale and Alicea, with why does it cost money? It happens often, and AA is free, and why are you guys charging, and this and that and the other thing. So to be really clear, when you come to a retreat, you're only paying for your room and board. You're paying for your housing and your food. And there's a little bit of money, because we want to be transparent, tacked on to cover the legacy guide that we give you, the materials that we give you, the registration platform, which costs a lot of money, but which made it easy for you to use your credit card. None of that stuff is free. But none of the speakers that come, guys, get paid. Nobody gets paid when they're teaching at a retreat. We have paid staff at Came to Believe, just like AA does. AA, Dale, we hear that. Well, AA is free. Well, the AA is not free. They have an organic fundraising system underneath that nobody seems to know about. What do you think the dollar is that you put in the thing every week? It's just, nobody thinks about that as fundraising, but they raise millions of dollars, and it's okay that they do, because they have the same kind of infrastructure and they same kind of things that they do. And I'll tell you this for everyone listening: if you go to an AA retreat or an AA convention, you have to pay too. If they're not free, you pay for your lodging or for the building,
hotel, and food.
Yeah, that's all you're paying for. Nobody's getting rich. If you think somebody's getting rich off $250 for a weekend in a retreat center, when you're spending 2 nights and 6 meals and all the snacks and everything, guys, I got to tell you, a lot of our retreats run at a loss. And where does that money come from, right? So it's by generous donations. And then the other thing is, if you truly can't afford it, we help you. There's been people supporting us in donations and money down throughout the years that help us. So we just want everyone to be really clear, really transparent, that the money is just what we have to charge for your expenses, for the room and board. And if you come to a commuter retreat, we still provide food and a book for you and some things. And sometimes the venue costs us some money to have. So it's a nominal charge, really, when you think about like what you spent to get into the room, right? I think when,
and you're leaving being recovered.
And you
So where's that?
Right. So, and we'd love to, we're very transparent. We'd love anybody that you have any questions, let us know. We can show you our 990. We have nothing to hide where all the money goes. And we spend a lot of money on, and actually, guys, our plans are to make it even freer for people. We'd love to subsidize every retreat to make them all one cost, no matter whether it's a thing or not, to make it affordable for anyone who needs to come to hear this message in a place like a weekend retreat center, which we have found you need to be at. It's where the magic happens. So, and you get that message. So I hope that puts some things to rest for people to feel more comfortable about the cost. And again, just call us. We've never turned anyone away because of money. In 50 years, 60 years of doing this, never have we turned anyone away. And now,
no, I was gonna say, do we want to go through what the weekend actually kind of looks like?
Yeah, my device I have here, guys, isn't letting me know our time. How much time do we have left?
It's only 31 minutes in.
We're 30 minutes. All right, so my thing is live. So, we have we used to do the steps, guys. If you think this is short, we used to do them in an afternoon. I mean, for the bulk of the years that Came to Believe was doing retreats, the vast majority, actually, they were done that way in an afternoon. That's how Dale and I both went through it. From noon to 5 o'clock. That's the steps that we got. Now, I think Dale and I know that we benefited from some very strong support very close to us immediately afterwards. I had my sponsor and Steve, and we had these people around us right away who helped us on ramp to the 10, 11, and 12 and keep us rolling. And we know that when we go around the country now, and this has been part of it, that in places where we don't have such a network of what we call Came to Believe people, right? It's more difficult for someone if they were to go through it in an afternoon and then walk away and have nothing to talk about. If this is the first time they've ever heard this, doesn't mean they can't be recovered, doesn't mean they can't grab a hold of it and go. But we benefited greatly by the fellowship, and the fellowship that supported what they learned over the weekend, and not the fellowship that supports them immediately telling them it didn't work. Because that's what happens sometimes, right? They go out to the first meeting and they tell them, well, you got to keep working on your step 3. You're like, why? I just can't tell you how many people I've said came back to me that didn't do so well and say, well, when I got back, my sponsor said, we just kept going with the step 4. I'm like, you didn't get it. You did your step 4. Well, my sponsor said I have to give. I'm like, all right, but you didn't get it. It didn't. So there was a recognition, though, that a little more time could be taken at it. And Steve was taking it through Clarence over 2 days. And there's a lot of evidence and support for us taking a little more time with them, i.e. a few days. I know when I've taken people through the steps, I've done a half a day Saturday and a week later the other half. It can be done like that. And we found some real benefit with the younger generation. And Dale, you can correct me or add to this if you feel like you've seen things differently or have another point. Some of the younger generation that comes in and some of the things we see today find that people that are coming to retreats are, number one, not sure they're addicted and they have a problem. And number two, have been damaged, hurt by religions, denominations, and spiritual messages and things in their life, and that they have seriously preconceived notions about things, especially when they hear Christian principles or things. And we don't benefit from this. The three of us get put in a box. Call yourself a Christian today, and what does that mean? Depends on who you're talking to, but it's not a good thing in many cases. And some of it I don't even want to be associated with, and I know we all know that. So I think today the need to take people some time with step 1 to talk about what being addict is, what it is to be a true addict and not, or to be just a heavy drinker or a heavy party or someone who is just going through a period of life that they could walk out of without this spiritual awakening that we needed. We needed this fix. And then to talk to them about taking on a new manager and talk about this brokenness that might have occurred through some religious training or lack of religious training or bad religious training type of thing. and something they've been brought up in their life, and break the bias and prejudice. We found taking this Friday night and spending some time doing that and resetting people to a place where they're ready to engage in a relationship with a God that they many times didn't know that even existed or that they could have a relationship has been a huge benefit. Taking Friday night, getting them to this cleaned out place, and then giving them a night to engage in what they've learned has really been a benefit, especially with the demographics that we've been seeing now, to make them prepared to really engage with the action steps of the next day. Give them a break, let them ask some questions, let them make a connection. And so we're going to keep doing it. Have you seen that similar thing, Dale? Because you were with me when we were doing it the other way.
Well, I mean, I wasn't very cerebral about it when I went through the steps. I mean, I didn't even realize I was sick. I remember Steve asking, "How long do you want to be sick?"
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I didn't know I was sick. I didn't know my thinking was bad. I thought I was highly intelligent. That word ignorant, I hated that word, but I just didn't know. I was ignorant of the fact that I was damaging myself with the way I thought. Um, but I have seen, I mean, starting in Waxahachie when we did the steps there this way, and then the virtual retreats during 2020, miracles happen with people that just because we gave them the opportunity to think about it and pray about it and interact spiritually, because that concept was so foreign to me when I was new. I think it would have benefited me greatly to have done it that way. I would have grown differently, quickly, because it took me a while to grow up after going through the steps. But I have seen that, and as I've been to these new retreats in the homeless shelters, I've seen the amazing things happen in people's lives just because they've been given that opportunity. And it's, it was a different experience for me in 1994 than maybe it is now. But I'm a different person than I was then. I mean, I was I'm not that same guy anymore. I care about people today. I didn't, I was terrified of people back then. But yeah, I mean, the last guy I took through the steps was we spent an afternoon in a Dunkin' Donuts, and I took him through the 12 steps. And he's got 6 years, and he's doing quite well. And so it's, that's just how the steps work.
Right.
That's just how it works. And if you just, and I taught him, I said, you just do this for other people. This is how you can help people, is to do this. You could be a nice guy too. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being kind and considerate, and showing up to work on time and doing your job and all of those things that we're supposed to do anyways. But you can use these steps, these principles will change people's lives in an afternoon. And over a weekend, it's just remarkable how much easier the weekend goes when it's not all crammed together.
Right.
With all these other things. People do not use the steps, in my opinion. They go through the steps and then they go on living their lives however they want a lot of times. And they don't use the tools because they're not helping other people use the tools.
Mm.
And so that's why my focus is the 12 steps, and why the retreats are done that way to me is because we need to get people using these tools. Otherwise they hit their thumb with the hammer,
Right.
or they stick the screwdriver in the light socket, or they just, if they don't learn how to use the tools and use them, they don't get better. They just don't drink or don't use.
And that's, Dale, you're hitting the thing right on the head. The main thing we have is the tools, and we need to show other people these tools and get better
Right.
at it. When you come
Right.
to a Came to Believe Recovery Retreat, you're here to get those tools. We're all for self-enhancement and improvement. And Alicia and I read every book in the world about everything you can imagine and talk about all this stuff on here and together as we grow in fellowship. But when we come to the steps, the three of us, guys, if you're listening, Dale, Alicia, and I, who love all that stuff, come right back to the steps. And we're there to do the steps, and we sit through them again like everyone else. We sit with a newcomer. We love it. There's never a question. We're not there for ourselves, although we get so much out of it by doing this. We're there to pass this on to the next person who needed it, just like we did, and then let them go off and grow in their life, in their faith community, in an academic world, or however they want to.
Right.
Alicia, you're like this classic example because you came from that long period program that said, and you'd been through it. And then you sat through the weekend and experienced that the way we have it broken into kind of 3 segments, the kind of the breakdown segment of Friday night to kind of get you ready and get you cleared out of bias and prejudices so you're able to engage. Did you, and I know now you're just completely involved with us and teach everything and come everywhere we go. Was that the experience you felt when you went through it?
What exactly?
Like, did you feel like you were able to better engage in this God? You were prepared. You could see why we did that the way we did it on Friday night.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I saw it just goes back to, oh, that's what that means. And each step is explained. And then we talk about it in our small group. And then I don't know exactly what I wanted to ask, but someone else asked it. And then it just makes sense. And then I was already a believer, but everybody can grow in their own belief, right? And I like what you just said before, I think I grow every retreat I go to. I'm growing too and working on, because we're never done learning and teaching, and our defects of character are coming up, and like, and I see things in other people, and it just shows me where I need to grow more. But yeah, I think I have a question back to go around that back to you. Like, if you didn't, in 4 hours or 5 hours that you did it first in 94, or whenever you did, how was the transition from 2 to 3 without the overnight thing? Did they give you a little bit of time at all?
Not really. I think we, and I don't know this because Dale and I watched many, many, many people go through it and be very successful and go on. I wonder sometimes there are those who brought up, were we as successful as we thought we were? We don't know. We think so. I mean, certainly. I think there's some people that just did it. They said the prayer. And I wonder how engaged they really were, because they just went to this spot and went in and did it. I know that had I, like Dale, had more time to really contemplate what I was doing and understand that I could have a relationship and just get a minute to breathe and be ready to really engage, I'd have gone quicker at this too. I'd have believed it more. I might have been more open to the actual God touching me deeper, quicker. It was all about that, being open. He does the work. I had to be open to say, all right, I need this, and clear away that stuff. I think I would have totally benefited, just like Dale said, from it going this way. I would have totally benefited. We just went through the motions. I think a lot of people just got on their knees and they said the prayer. And I
think people still do that now in our retreats.
I believe
and
it.
I've heard a few of them, though it still works. Even if they're questioning, I was questioning, like,
Sure.
do I really mean this? I don't understand what. And then that's what step 11 is for.
Right.
But
see,
what was that? That's what I did. And then you connect it all.
But you see, there's a key phrase there. That's what a step 11 is for, a tool to help you grow, which you learn right away, instead of 6 months, 8 months later, where you're trying to dial back to where were you when you gave your life the other day, but I don't know if I have it. Well, we're going to tell you on Sunday, when you don't feel it, here's how you grow into it. It just makes all the sense in the world. As we're talking about it even now, it even makes more sense to me why we're doing what we're doing. You got to have all the tools. So we give you that, you try it in 3, right? And then you perfect it maybe in 11. Does that make sense? But it's a classic point, Alicia, that we're going to tell you about that and overcome that. I don't know if it worked. Well, we know you don't feel like it worked, maybe, but we don't run on feelings anymore. We run
And
on.
we talk about that too. Many of
And we
the
talk about
speakers
that.
will talk about that. And it goes back to there's so much information. Yeah, there is, but where are you confused? Let's talk about it. Talk to somebody. Go to a
Right.
meeting online. We have meetings online. Learn. It's okay that
There's
you're confused. And
there's a
then
lot
simplify it.
there's a lot more openness today. Because I mean I had a certain amount of mental illness when I went through the steps, I think.
You still do.
Well,
Red Sox fan.
I
And
mean,
you've got some growing to do still.
I people are much more open to talk about that now.
Yeah.
Not Tom, maybe, but the rest of us are much more open to talk about that. And I just did what I was told. There was no suggestion. I remember Steve saying that Clarence had said about Dr. Bob. There was no suggestion. I did what I was told. And there was 40 other people going through the steps, and they got on their knees, so I got on my knees. It was a different time in 1994 than it is in 2023. So people had changed. Culture has changed. But I had to grow out of that stuff. Those old coping mechanisms that I had to deal with life, because the only way I had to deal with it was drink. And I learned to cope, and I had to quit coping and start growing. And that's what happened after the retreat. I applied myself to the readings I was told to read. I applied myself to meetings. I kept going back to retreats. That's the thing I can't encourage you enough. Is Alicia, you kept coming back, and you've grown in leaps and bounds because of that. Because you're actually practicing these principles. You're using the tools to help other people. And not everybody has to do speaking engagements. Some people just can be in the background, being the person that prays with somebody, or just be nice to people and talk to them and make them comfortable. And there's lots of opportunity at retreats to be of service. But it was different in 1994. I remember meeting Tom, and he was kind of arrogant, and he was young and full of himself, and good looking dude. And I remember thinking, I'm going to do this much better than him. That was a motivator for me, because that was what I was competitive. I thought I need to do this much better than him. And whether I did or not, I don't know. But the promises came true in my life, and it seemed like a miracle to me that I could be successful doing this. So I always encourage people, if I can do it, if Tom can do it, if Alicia can do it, it can't be that hard. It really can't be that hard.
And what grace we both have. Red Sox and a Yankee fan as best friends. How does that happen?
I'm not even talking about the weekend. What happened this weekend in the Bronx. I haven't even brought it up.
Well, he's only posted about on every Facebook page that's possible, every possible way.
The sky is bluer and the grass is greener.
Yeah. So, guys, let's take a quick second to say. So, after Friday night, when you get engaged on Saturday, we take you through 3 through 9, which are like the clean out steps. They're the action steps. We've got you a new manager now. And we take you through that step 4 and teach you how to identify the natures of your wrongs, not every single wrong. And it's really a way to identify the character that you've been living by, that you're going to turn over to God, that's led to all your behaviors. Now we're going to deal with all your behaviors, but it's not a 4-step thing. And we'll explain why. And most people who say you can't do it, once we get done, they go, oh yeah, I guess you can. I remember Melody in City Teams. Remember, Dale, we talked to her, and she was one of the leaders of City. She's one of the women's shelter counselors, and she was adamant it cannot be done in a half hour. It cannot be done. I mean, and she sat through it, and in the back of the room shook her head and said, yeah, it can. The way we do it and the way they did it. That's the thing. The way they did it. We know the columns are in the big book and all of that. And that was supposed to be in step 8. There's a reason. And we'll talk all around why the columns are in the book and all of that. And then we tell you about doing your amends, and we give you some instructions to go out and start making amends, and tell you about the promises you'll get and send you off to do that. But those 6 steps, right? 3 through 9 are done in the afternoon. 8 and 9, are done on the rest of your life. I mean, as long as you have to do it, you got to do it, but you agree to do it on that weekend and you begin doing it. Then on Sunday, we give you then another night off to kind of contemplate what you did, get yourself together. And then the next phase is you wake up Sunday for your new life. And then we're going to show you how to live in the go. We're going to show you how to take what we just taught you, 1 through 9, over long form, and overlay it over the rest of your life every single day by doing 10, 11, and 12 and growing. And you can start on Monday morning, and that's the way it goes, guys. And we watch people get free. And Dale and Alicia and I will tell you, if you do what you're instructed, if you do what we do, if you do what they did, you get what they got. And they got free, guys, not just from their addictions, but free from all sorts of stuff. They got empowered. They got encouraged. They got a life that they never had before. They experienced the 4th dimension of existence, which nobody understands until you start having it.
Right.
And it's what we see. We don't want you to leave and be white knuckling. We want you free from it. And we want you off grabbing whatever that life is that God had for you, and go get it. And it happens in a weekend. And we'd love anybody that's listening that wants to come and try it. We've got retreats going around the country. We have one coming up in California, and then again right here in New Jersey, and then we're going to be down in Florida, and then we're going to be back in California, and then who knows, guys? There's lots of things coming. We're doing some shelters in California, shelters here in New York City, and we're just trying every way that we can to get every venue and every opportunity to spread this message.
Let's do this question real quick. But then how do you maintain it after the weekend? That's exactly 10, 11, and 12.
It's 10, 11, and 12, and we teach you how to do that, Kevin. And we do encourage fellowship. Of course, you need to benefit by a fellowship, by being in to help you. But our fellowships are solution-oriented, where you go and you talk about working your 10, 11, and 12 and getting better at it. I benefited greatly from that, but that's how you do it. We're going to show you how to go. You really are living it. I would say living it more than maintaining it, if that is a better word for me. While you are maintaining it, we say you live in the go, you grow and you live and you move forward. It's not like we're just keeping a status quo. None of us have stayed the same. Dale hasn't, I haven't. Dale and I mean, if you saw the two of us, he's right about me being that attitude and that arrogant. I didn't know what I didn't know. And he didn't know what he didn't know. But we're who we are today because we did what they said to do, and we've grown into this place. And Alicia, you've grown in 2 years, ridiculous. Or it's almost 3 years now, right? Since you came, right?
September 21. No, 2, right?
2.
2
well,
years.
20, yeah. In a way, and I got to tell you, Dale, I don't know. I mean, Alicia's had the benefit of you and me as mentors. I mean, who could not grow but grow?
Right.
Like, I mean, you and I didn't have that.
True, it might be true.
But
And she keeps coming back.
And she keeps coming. I think the benefit of what we do is accelerating people getting in that recovered. We're telling them it and giving them a little bit better guidance on living in the go than I got. And I know the same with you, Dale. We didn't get the same kind of guidance and encouragement. I did. I was kind of given that, okay, there you go, now go.
Right.
And we did it, and we were fine with it because we did have that support around us. Today,
Right.
we're just giving a little bit more of that guidance, and I think it's a huge benefit. And I think it was to you, Alicea, because you grabbed onto our community really quickly and went, and as have many others. I mean, California 2 years ago had nothing, guys, nothing. And now we do 3 or 4 retreats a year. We're in homeless shelters. We're expanding all over the place, all because we came there once up in Oroville and did this thing, and then got into Nevada City. It's just an amazing thing. Once people hear it, it goes. And we expect the same growth here in New York City. That's where I am today.
Yeah. And that guy Dale out there in California was using this book.
Right.
You had to go find out why. Why are you
Right.
buying so many of our books? And
Yeah.
that led to a lot of retreats.
Right. And a support community that's just doing wonderful. And I'm watching people's lives change and families restored and children and relationships restored. It's been really great. And we're going to see that same thing here in New York City over the next year or so. Is our big target is taking on New York City. And we're taking on LA too. We're going to be in Malibu in December. So some of these, San Francisco, San Jose, LA, New York City, we're taking the big hits right off the bat, But all right, guys, we got 3 minutes left. Sorry for me coming in a little bit late. I mean, I know we could talk about this all day long, because this is what our life is, guys. If you're listening to us, 3 of us, we live and breathe this stuff. We walk it and we talk it. We really do. I say to people, when I say what we're going to do, that we live in the go and we do our 10 elemental, we actually do.
Right.
Do it.
Bill Wilson called it a design for living.
Right.
I mean, it's not a design for staying sober. It's a design for living.
Love it.
And so this is what we're doing. We're living.
Right.
And it's remarkable because you never know what's coming around the corner.
Right.
We really need to be humble and have integrity and honesty of like staying in 10, 11, and 12. And if something feels funky, we need to not blame other people. We need to look inside, because it's always something in us. And that's step 10. And we have to look at that. And if not, then you stay funky. And then you're not doing step 10. And good luck. It's not going to be pretty.
It's not going to be pretty.
It's not.
Anyway, guys, have a great
Kevin, you should go to the commuter.
Yep. You think about going, because that was it. And Kips Bay. Well, guys, we made an attempt, and even against some advice of coming into Kips Bay a little early. We just don't have the awareness in New York City amongst the recovery community. And so we thought it wasn't canceled, it was postponed. We're going to do it here in a month or 2. I've been doing a lot of efforts here in New York City, but they've been on the higher fundraising levels and things to try to be able to expand our program. And we threw Kips Bay in, and we just hadn't made the connections with the recovery communities. It's simply that people just didn't know it was around. And so we're going to make a big effort here in the next couple of months to run around, and I've got a team going, and we're going to go to meetings, and we're going to pass out flyers, and we're going to do all that kind of stuff so that people know about it. And then off we come, guys. And we expect to do them monthly in New York City and in other places. We'll be back in the shelters in the Bronx probably before soon. So that's all. Stay tuned. We're coming at you. Dale's going to come up and do some speaking with me. Donna's coming in from New Jersey, a few other people. Maybe we can even get Alicea on a plane. It's not easy to get her on a plane, guys. It is not.
Go where?
To go, see? To go where?
To go to the East Coast?
Yeah. It's not easy to get her on a plane.
No.
It's not hard to get Dale on a plane. So or me. I love it. Anyway, we're over a little bit, but we want to answer that question. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next week, which is book review week, right, Alicea?
Yeah. We're going to book review. What's it called?
Living Fearless.
Yes.
Living Fearless is a wonderful book that we've read, which is a lot of support material, totally backs what we talk about in the steps in the program, and a great example of things we can do and how we can grow after we get ourselves free of this thing that's had us in bondage. Thanks, guys, for everything. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see all of you again 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock East Coast, and 6 o'clock in the UK, right here on Recovery Live.